remind you, day one was why autonomy center internationalization. Day two, we addressed the curriculum design and students' employability. And we're coming to the final point. It's partnerships and networks that put an end to all the internationalization process. So let me invite Mrs. Catherine Kalunyanga from Kenya and Mrs. Françoise Moulin-Civil from France to the stage. I'll let you the floor. I leave the floor for you. Okay. Good morning to all of you. Here we are for the third day of our conference. Catherine and I are quite delighted to conduct this third plenary session. Want to say good morning?
Good morning. How are you? Welcome to our last and final days where we nail everything to the ground and we hit the ground running. So we'll be talking about partnerships. So, yeah.
Well, this morning, effectively, we will be discussing a topic that is absolutely central to the internationalization process and its success. The partnerships and networks that a university can establish and rely on. We all have agreements, shared projects, but the question is how choose them, how to manage them. Here comes I'm sorry, Here comes a summary of what we are talking about this morning, and we are going to follow this summary. Okay. So, we are going first to see how partnership policy is a key element in shaping the internationalization of universities in education and research. We have insisted in the past few days, 2 days, how it's useful to integrate, of course, both education and research, and I do insist on it this morning. We have, with Catherine, identified a few key factors that are crucial for establishing balanced partnerships in terms of governance, leadership, resources, monitoring, attractiveness, and collective work. These partnerships are essential because they expand what the institution, the university, can achieve in education, research, innovation, funding, and social impact. Let's look at these points one by one. We want first to insist on the importance of a proactive governance with a clear vision and an institutional strategy. That means having goals, having objectives, geographical or thematic priorities, and performance indicators. Also, for international partners, there is a need to establish a long-term, if it's possible, of course, long-term strategy. This last point is really, really very important. Next, we want to emphasize the need for high-level leadership. In particular, we strongly recommend the commitment from senior management, the creation of a dedicated committee, and a cross-faculty departmental coordination. The goal is to strengthen the governance by establishing, for example, a vice presidency. We already said it in the past 2 days, vice presidency or dedicated the directorate, supported by a professional team, policy and administrative, etc. When it exists, the challenge is often overlap of mandates and poor coordination mechanism. So we have to work on it. We have to overcome the common challenge and ensure the continuity of a policy in the internationalization policy. Third key factor, the need for stable and dedicated financial resources for partnership. It's a very difficult point, we know it. It's particularly important to facilitate mobility, but not only. Stable and dedicated financial resources are essential for university partnerships because precisely partnerships are long-term commitments that require continuity, trust, and the ability to deliver results. Without reliable funding, even strong collaboration can weaken or fail. It's a matter of long-term sustainability, of trust and credibility, of support to strategic planning. This helps attract high-quality partners and opportunities. We know that this point, of course, is very, as I said, it's very difficult, but we have to do it. Before planning new partnerships, it's essential to have a dashboard that facilitates monitoring. It's absolutely necessary to take inventory of existing partnerships by faculty or school or department. It's a very long work, but it's very necessary. And to implement robust monitoring and evaluation mechanism for all partnerships. It's crucial because partnerships must demonstrate value, accountability, and impact over time. Universities collaborate with very different partners, governments, industries, non-governmental organizations, research institutions, donors, international organizations, etc., and effective monitoring and evaluation ensures this relationship remain productive and aligned with institutional goals. The inventory can take time, as I said it, but it's useful to do it. In the same way, it's necessary to identify the strengths of the institution in education and research, as well as factors able to enhance attractiveness. For that reason, it's essential to work on communication and international image of the university through targeted marketing, multilingual websites, very important, multilingual websites, presence in rankings if it's possible, and networks, etc. Of course, these operations have a cost, but it's a cost the governance has to assume. And finally, the collective work is essential. The governance has to work with all the community, lecturers, researchers, students, administrative staff, of course, students. They have all to be engaged in the partnership building process. It's a better way to ensure their needs and aspirations are taken into account. Further, there is need to foster internal support and build a multidisciplinary approach for each project, for each agreement. It's essential to seek, of course, as we said it before, to seek balanced and appropriate partnerships in which mutual respect between partner institutions prevails. 4 key principles can be highlighted: equality, transparency, mutual benefit, and interculturality. They all work together, of course. We separate them, but they all work together. The pursuit of equality is what makes a balanced partnership possible. Regardless of the level at which it is pursued, at the level of a single university or a group of university or an alliance or network, doesn't bite. But always prioritizing a give and take or a win-win approach. This promotes balance and equality, but also transparency and mutual benefits. From the beginning, the governance has to identify risks of asymmetry or dependency and has to negotiate these within the framework of international cooperation. In other words, the governance has to shift from dependency to interdependence, not independence, interdependence. The need of transparency is essential too. For that reason, it's highly recommended, first, to select universities or institutions that share similar values and have compatible academic objectives. This may include institutions recognizing complementary fields, of course. Twin universities barely exist. And second, to establish bilateral relationships and foster open and transparent dialogue with potential partners. This involves visits, exchanges, and discussion regarding each party's expectations and contributions. This part of the process, which must be completed before the partnership agreement is signed, very important to hear that before, of course, the agreement is signed. This part is very long but crucial. It avoids, or at least limits, mistaken decisions. The result of equality and transparency is often a mutual benefit. The governance has to ensure fairness in exchanges and that the benefits of partnerships are mutual. This may include student exchange programs, joint research projects, and collaboration or academic events. Whatever form the partnership takes, it must meet the expectations of each party. It's crucial from the very beginning to identify common themes as a basis for partnerships and develop a variety of collaborative projects, such as exchange programs, dual degrees, joint research, seminars, etc. This helps to address the diverse interests of both institutions. Of course, the common themes are, we have many examples of common themes, like environmental issues, digital transformation, health and well-being, One Health, agriculture and food, artificial intelligence, humanities and social science, economic development and entrepreneurship, art, culture, heritage, gender equality, social inclusion, etc., etc. The list is very, very long of common themes. They are not hard to cite. The issue of interculturality is fundamental as well. Promoting intercultural understanding between partner institutions is extremely important because universities increasingly operate in global and diverse environments. Partnerships often involve institutions from different countries, languages, educational systems, and cultural backgrounds. Intercultural understanding helps this collaboration function effectively, respectfully, and sustainably. Point 3, the political and legal aspect of international partnership. These are aspects that must not be overlooked. For each partnership to be established, it's strongly recommended, first, in terms of legality and reciprocity, to verify the legal framework and compliance. Compliance, of course, with national regulations and international agreements in terms of visas, recognition of qualification, immigration regulation for students or staff, etc. And in terms of legality and reciprocity, useful, of course, to ensure partnership agreements are enshrined in legally binding reciprocal agreements. In terms of ethics, we have to ensure legal frameworks that address ethical standards in research, especially regarding international research, collaboration, and quality assurance. In terms of data and ownership protection, we have to ensure adherence to data protection regulations when sharing research data across borders. And we have to provide, of course, constructive frameworks for negotiation and governance and for clearly defined ownership of research outputs, innovations, intellectual property. Of course, this is a requirement that also applies to researchers from the same country, not just internationally speaking. And finally, in terms of evaluation, we have to establish evaluation mechanism to measure the impact of partnerships and adjust in that way strategies based on the results achieved.
Okay, I think now you know why partnerships are important, especially with regard with what we've been discussing about internationalization of the curriculum and internationalization of research. So partnerships are very essential. Now, given the background that you've been given, we are going to look at some of the things you need to do to have good partnerships, and we'll give you examples of good partnerships that really work. Just examples, and later in the afternoon, we have some case studies. We'll explore further what is being done in Ethiopian universities. So you can see in point 4, we really need networks, alliances, and consortia. Gone are the days where a single university, for example, would just apply for a research project and get it. The funder now wants people to be organized maybe in a consortium or in a network. Also, gone are the days when you would say your curriculum is international, yet you do not have networks or partners that bring some knowledge that is new, that bring some other aspects that are not known to your university. Now, so partnership policies are driven by a country or a group of countries, and we'll give you examples of how this is happening. For example, and I've been mentioning this, Ethiopia cannot work in isolation. You need to work with other countries. For example, Hawassa University cannot work alone and really say they're international. You need to be in a consortium or in a network. I've given examples there closer to home in Africa. I'm sure all of you know ARUA, Alliance of Researchers University Alliance. Afritech, this is mostly for engineering and science courses in Africa. Reforam is mostly for agriculture and food sciences in East Africa. And these networks in Africa, they support student and staff mobility, knowledge sharing. They even fund projects in the different disciplines that I've mentioned. Please, if you are not partner of these networks, look them up, become a partner, because there are a lot of benefits from becoming part of these networks. In Europe, you can see European universities, the grilled. Internationally, we have issues like SARA, International Innovation Hub. I'll be giving an example of SARA later in the afternoon and some of the initiatives that SARA is doing globally. Gradually then moving towards increasing robust relationship from simple research or training collaborations leads to more comprehensive and institutional alliances. And you can see we've given examples there. I'll be elaborating more on the European Africa example of the Shift KF which is a Peer 3 project funded by AFD. I will mention what that means. And the Engineering and Science Complex, which is an alliance between France and Kenya, just to show how these work. So all these networks, partnerships, and alliances really leverage also on digital tools, which has been our topic of discussion throughout, to really ensure that there's effective communication between all the partners and also mutual collaboration between all the partners in the consortia. So please have a look of all these networks, consortia. They're available in the website. Ask yourself, where do I belong? Whether you're in Africa or in Europe, do I belong to a certain network or consortium? Now, the question that must be in your mind, how do I design a partnership then that increases autonomy? Remember, that's our focus for this international conference. So I've given you some very good key principles there. One is that you need to have mutual respect between the different partners. So everyone has to bring something. So it's not one-man show. It has to be all the partners bringing something to the table. Then you need to have shared goals. And that's why we said, as you look for a partner, you need to ask yourself, what are their vision? What is the objective? Why do we need this partnership? What am I bringing to the table? And then transparency is very important. Sometimes I know because people just want to meet certain goals, maybe for promotion or to make your university visible, you don't take a step back and ask, why do I need to join this network? Why do I need this partnership? This should be very clear from the start. There should be open communication and even trust between the partners. Remember I said a partnership is a relationship, just like, for example, a marriage. So you need to be very open to each other. You need to have some shared goals and vision. Then flexibility. You need some room for change. A lot can change because most partnerships are long-term. So you need to give that flexibility in case circumstances change or the needs of a certain partner, for example, changes, then it's flexible enough for you to make those changes. And that's why you see, when you do most of the memorandum of understanding, usually it's a 5-year thing, which later you can negotiate and do another 5 years. So in case something has changed, within the 5 years, then before you sign the next other contract for the next 5 years, you can change or adapt to those needs. Now, there are a lot of strategies that have been proposed to enhance autonomy when it comes to partnership. One is empowerment. This is in terms of providing resources and decision-making to partners. And remember, it's not only one partner, it's all the partners that come into play here. Then co-creation. People call it co-production, co-development. Again, for example, if it's knowledge sharing, knowledge should not move from one side only, it should be from both sides. For example, north to south, but also south to north. And I gave an example yesterday. A lot of the time, when you talk of student mobility, you have more of student mobilities to ask the north, but not to the south. You need to ask yourself, how many students are you also hosting from the north? Because if it's only one way, then that one does not give that co-creation principle. Then obviously capacity building is very important. Whether it's knowledge, whether it's curriculum, whether it's in research, you really need to have invest in training and development. And this enhances the skills and competencies of both staff and the students and increases the visibility of each partner university within the consortia. Now, there are 3 pillars that I want to highlight for autonomous design when it comes to partnerships. One is inclusive co-design. This means then we are moving beyond extractive engagement towards more equitable partnerships and where decision-making power is shared from day one. Immediately you've established, you have common goals with a certain partner, for example, a university or private sector. From the beginning, from day one, you should establish what do you want to do together and co-design together going forward the activities that you want. And that's why you had, it was mentioned, visits. You need to visit the partner you want to engage. Go to their faculty, get to know what are their facilities, what are the programs they're offering in that university, where are synergies that you can work together, because most of the times maybe they are not even doing what you want to do. So you need to establish this from day one.
Then capacity resilience, this is mostly focusing on internal organizational growth rather than project-specific tasks to ensure long-term viability. Part of why most partnership experience a very quick death is because most of the time you are more focused on a specific project or a specific activity. And once that is gone, everything falls. The partnership is gone. Then the last one, you need very clear exit strategies. Suppose that partnership doesn't work. For example, you don't have resources to sustain, or something happens legally, because legal issues have been raised and ethics, then you should have some minimum viable conditions for transition, either to exit or to make it stronger. And that's why I said part of why most institutions make the MOUs 5 years is just to test the ground and see whether this is a long-term relationship or not. Now, I'm going to move quickly to some examples of partnerships, successful. I'm calling them successful because they are working, and the basis of selection is that they are more current and ongoing, and because France is involved here, I thought I should give an example so that is based on France-African collaboration. The first one is the engineering and the science complex, which is, first of all, I want to mention, is not just the university, but between the two governments of Kenya and France. And we are building a complex that we are calling engineering and science complex. You can see it's very specific which discipline that this partnership is addressing. And the vision for this complex is transformative flagship project between Kenya and East Africa and France, and is based at the University of Nairobi. It bridges, first of all, academia and industry, addresses the needs of the youth by boosting innovation and entrepreneurship, irrigating job markets with well-trained talent. Also, while targeting innovation, job creation, and key topics in science and engineering. You have to bear witness with me. We have many universities in Africa, but most of the time we produce graduates who are not employed. So in some countries, it's as high as 80% of unemployed youth. What are we doing wrong? What is wrong with our curriculum? What do we need partnerships to do so that we have job creators and not job seekers? Gone are the days, I remember when we used to graduate from the university, you'd straight away get a government job, even with a car. You can travel anywhere in the country, do your job. Right now, you'll be very lucky to even get a government job. So we really need to transform our training to job creation. So the engineering complex, as you can see, is structured in a traversal and sectorial communities of excellence that bring together internal and external stakeholders from the public and the private sector, students, researchers, entrepreneurs, citizens, organizations, and agencies. And together, the communities develop international and interdisciplinary education, and in this case, engineering and science, with the aim of creating a strong professional environment where knowledge, technology, and creativity work together to solve real-world challenges. And that's what we define internationalization to mean. Now, I wanted to see in terms of finances. We said partnerships cannot work with the resources. And sometimes, as we say, it's not just a give. We need to move from that dependency. You can see that first funding there, the building of this pillar, is actually a 30 million euro loan to the government of Kenya. That means we're going to pay, so we are also part of it. It's not just us being given. Then the other one, of course, most of the grants that support research, innovation, curriculum, industry, linkages, and international mobility. Also, that is also sponsored by the French government. And we started this by the two presidents signing an agreement in 2023. And then later, because this complex is hosted at the University of Nairobi, you can see our vice chancellors and all these universities here, and you can see there are many universities. I'm sure those who understand the French university system, you can see most of the top engineering universities in France represented. And individually, I want to highlight that also each of these universities has signed an MOU with the University of Nairobi because we needed to vet what are we getting from these engineering universities and what are they getting from our engineering and science programs.
I want to add.
Oh, yeah, I wanted that to explain a little bit about PSL. Yeah.
I want to add a commentary on this slide. You have on the slide 2 examples of merged or very closely associated universities in France, PSL and Université Paris-Saclay. And really, I want to insist on it. In fact, the initiatives undertaken by merged university or demonstrate that though the organizational structure is more complex, we are sometimes stronger when we work together. Mergers or close partnerships have made it possible to offer joint degrees, to offer submit joint proposals for funding, and secure top spots in international rankings. And that case of Université Paris-Saclay and of PSL University. I wanted to add that.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to confirm to her that actually we had a benchmarking visit of all the top professors. We went for 2 weeks to all these institutions, Chimie, Mines, Centro Supalec, Paris-Saclay, AgroParisTech, and actually we saw it actually works when universities work together. They demonstrated success stories towards these collaborations between each other. So this is something, again, Africa, we can learn from this. Now, what is the vision of the engineering and science complex? Just to give you an example, we have 8 communities of excellence, again, built on an innovative ecosystem of this community of excellence. We have higher education, research and innovation, and international, multidisciplinary, open and inclusive. And you can see some of the things we are addressing. You can see there I belong to agriculture and food science. I had that pillar. Then we have people doing biotech, process and green chemistry, industry and manufacturing, sustainable energy, urban development and transport, and health tech. And you can see this, therefore, will be a very big complex lying between 30,000 square meters state-of-art academic building at the university. So, of course, part of the other contribution by the university is the land, quite a big land in central Nairobi. And you can see partners. We have both internal, external, industry, agencies, CBOs, NGOs, and she highlighted why you need all these partners to make sure that that partnership is actually strong. And we also have international tools and calls that are also supporting to support some of the knowledge exchange mobilities. You can see the Horizon EU been writing proposals on that. Lua, Afritech, CNRS, IRD, CIRAD actually spent 2 months in CIRAD learning on how they work, and now we are having a platform for research. AFD is sponsoring the next example that I'm going to give, GIZ, Kenyan agencies and donors. And this is what makes really a successful partnership work. Now, also, we have different aspects that we look at. First of all, innovation is very central. When you are talking about youth and education, you cannot avoid innovation. That's how Africa is going to grow. And you can see there data, AI, HPSC. And so we are intervening at different points. You can see curriculum, which we've been talking about yesterday. And we want a curriculum that offers industry-oriented training, so that when you graduate that student, they have the skills and competencies that match the industry needs. Then we have international mobilities with the joint or dual degree programs. We are developing also modules on different aspects like AI and innovation. We have the research. We are also impacting the research community because we are looking for calls and applying for joint research with academic partners and the industries. We are doing co-publication, joint programs, mobility, and grants. And I'll highlight one of the grants that we've done through this complex so that you can see that actually sustainability is possible within a good partnership network. Then for innovation, we are having facilities and activities around prototyping, incubation, acceleration, all the way to commercialization, and with the different chairs for these different disciplines. And so we also are engaging events, fairs like the just recently concluded African Forward Summit. Now, I wanted to highlight quickly how the building, construction, and transition of this vision is happening. So you can see the main pillars here are research, as I say, innovation, curriculum, industry linkage, and internationalization. but they are linked to different sectors of or communities of excellence. We have innovation there, data, AI, clean chemistry, agri-food, energy, manufacturing, health, beauty, and urban management. And all these, we have different stakeholders that are supporting these communities of excellence work. And just to highlight, these are the partners. And this, I can tell you before you have a slide with all these logos, it means a lot of work has gone around it, organizing visits, establishing goals and objectives, signing MOUs, and like especially the industry sector. They have been very useful in supporting our engineering and science students so that they can get those competencies and skills that is required in the job market. Quickly, the next example will be shorter. It emanates from one of the centers of communities of excellences in the engineering complex, and that is agriculture and food. So through this complex, we were able to bid for a call. We are calling it Strengthening Higher Institutional Agriculture and Food Training between Kenya and France, so in short, SHIFT KF. And it's again partnership between France and Kenya through the University of Nairobi. And you can see a photo there where we went to AgroParisTech is the lead in agriculture that we are collaborating with. And you can see what we want to do simply. Our youth nowadays, they say agriculture is not cool, but we want to tell them, no, training in agriculture and food is actually very good. Most of our countries in Africa actually depend on agriculture to feed the growing population, to feed the future, because it's expected by 2050, the population will double. Who will feed that population? We need to support our agri-food system, and so this particular partnership is developed to actually support that, and you can see very centered on agroecology, sustainable agriculture, and food technology. We are looking at climate resilience and sustainable system. And you can see, very important, is the research projects is really based on innovation and youth employability. And we talked about this yesterday. We really need to see how can we make our disciplines more employable. Again, it's through partnerships like this, and you can see part of the training is more centered on agroecology and food system. Now, our specific focus really is to upgrade the existing bachelor degrees in agriculture so that we make agriculture cool, more acceptable to the African population, the youth, and also develop internationally recognized job-oriented master's program. We said international curriculums are now gaining importance, so we want to demonstrate using these two new curriculums that it's possible to have an international curriculum through partnerships. Then we'll also create modules based on short courses under different thematic areas and design interdisciplinary joint research projects, including also building capacity of the faculties. We are innovating our innovation labs and also innovation hubs that support training of students and also teaching by the staff members. So you can see the partnership again is big. Again, between Kenya and France. So it's not only University of Nairobi and AgroParisTech, but we have a whole consortium of partners, both the private sector industry, NGOs, communities, and different partners within that can make this partnership work. And this is the power of partnership, and we hope through these two examples, really, as we go back to our universities, we can initiate very good partnerships and that can promote internationalization of our education and research. Thank you.
Well, let me just go back to the title of the plenary, Partnerships and Network. And to start a discussion, I will invite first on stage Mrs. Catherine Kayunga on stage, Françoise Moulin-Civil, and Frédéric Fleury. Yes, same seat if you want, please. Any comment, discussion? We've been speaking a lot about, legal procedure, data protection, compliance, legal compliance, very important. And definitely they're a very important concern when we're speaking of partnerships with, between, I would say, northern countries and the southern country. This is the asymmetry of the relationship. that we would all like to fulfill, and not just to widen the gap between the two partners. If you have any question, we can take one or two before I start with his question.
Good morning. Thank you to all presenters for the nice presentation. My question is very simple. Actually, based on the principles that we have stated about partnerships to be mutually beneficial, or it has to be mutually benefit all the partners. My question is actually for the presentation. I have seen a lot of benefits from the Kenyan side, but I have not seen really the benefit from the France side. So what are the benefits that France is getting from this partnership?
Catherine is going to answer. I just want to say that France is not so generous. What full benefits are existing for France?
Again, I think we already say, for example, it's joint student mobility. We are hosting France students in engineering and science courses. They actually hosted at the University of Nairobi, and we have the same number also being hosted. And also the visits have been two-way. The projects we created, like the Shift KEF that I mentioned, actually I was the lead from the Kenyan side at the University of Nairobi, and I had my colleague, Professor Samit, also from Polytech. We actually did a lot of writing actually happened in Kenya. We facilitated even the light shops, taking people around to how to sit and write. So actually it's really mutual. I would say they are benefiting about. And we actually hosted, I don't know whether you followed last week, we hosted the African Forward Summits. And these were highlighted that actually Kenya is giving back equally the same. So I wanted to mention something. With the staff mobility, we also have both ways. We have staff teaching as guest lecturers in the universities we are showing, PSL, Polytech, and the same also in Kenya. Thank you.
Polytech is belonging to Université Paris-Saclay, the big university where in France, near Paris. So, of course, it's mutual benefits. It's obvious. Well, these are examples of work. The widow Mayo example who do not work. And in the case where those partnerships are signed, we sign lots of AOUs every year. What do we do? So my first question would be to Frédéric. How do you power asymmetries? Because we know this is the main concern between the north and south. Manifest in partnerships. And what strategies can be employed to address them effectively?
Thank you about very good questions. This has been a recurring theme throughout these 3 days, and a great deal of the information has already been shared. Françoise and Kazim just show you a number of line of reflections to address this asymmetry with a very nice example between Kenya and France. Asymmetry partnerships between universities often between North and South, but also between Northern country and Southern country themselves can manifest in different ways. First of all, and we speak largely about that, academic asymmetry. And we have extensively discussed and underlined the asymmetry in student mobility with the risk of brain drain. In research, agenda are frequently shaped by learning institutions, international rankings, funding entities, scientific priorities. In some cases, research topics relevant to local realities may receive less considerations. Local knowledge may be under-evaluated, and publication standards may favor northern academic models. And you speak about that also. We can have lots of time to discuss about academic asymmetry. We have lots of points within it. I would like to add technological asymmetry and digital asymmetry. Both research and training depend on digital technology and partner with different level access and sovereignty to internet infrastructure, connectivity, digital platforms, learning and data analysis, technological and digital skill. But in research, we can observe that large-scale research infrastructure are not distributed equally, but localized in Europe, North America, Asia. For example, CERN in particle physics is in Europe. ITER for research on nuclear fusion is in Europe. Lots of large equipment are in Asia or in North America. When we search where in Africa there is some kind of equipment, there is, for example, for observatory of a planet or of a space in South Africa. But you have relatively very big equipment in research. But it's a kind of thing. The linguistic asymmetry also exists. Clearly, not much language is a form of academic power. English dominates for the longer, for fund application, scientific publication, working, conferences, international academic cooperations, and straight advantage for thoughts. Institutions by potentially marginalize local language, regional knowledge systems, and non-English academic community. The fourth point is financial asymmetry. In collaborative programs, training or research funded by both or all of the country involved in the partnerships or by international organizations, the aggregate sums are sometimes vary considerably between partnerships due to decisions, internal rules, or the capacity of fund. When you have an asymmetry in the project of partnerships between the funding of each partner give in the project. And this can lead to asymmetry in management, governance, and implementations of the collaboration programs, particularly in defining priorities and strategy directions. This can create a kind of asymmetry. Another asymmetry, which can be produced by the financial asymmetry, is governance and organizational asymmetry. Partnerships are sometimes formally collaborative, but operationally dominated by one institution. And you have to avoid this kind of asymmetry in the governance of the project. A partner may coordinate the project, manage the budget, lead the decision-making process because of a reactive governance decision or well-sized administrative services. Then asymmetry in the organizations and governance of two partners can lead to asymmetry in the decision-making and the implementations of a project or partnerships. The last one is epistemological and sovereignty asymmetry, but that already discussed this extremely yesterday at the morning. The central challenge is therefore not to eliminate all asymmetry, it's probably impossible, but rather to recognize them openly, manage them transparently, reduce structural imbalance where possible, and build partnership based on reciprocity, trust, share benefits, and mutual learning. Now, how we can face to this kind of asymmetry? And Françoise and Catherine just give you before lots of solutions. But a golden rules, simple to say, but difficult to implement, is to develop an international strategy based on a clear and well-informed choice, covering all university activity, then embedded in the overall institutional strategy and implemented with confidence and persistence. This requires balanced, mutually beneficial frameworks agreements translated to operational documents that leave no room for unacceptable asymmetry, and you underline this point in your talk. Yet, remember what I showed you the first day. According to the International Association University Survey, only 25% of institutions in the world, among 700 universities which participate to the survey. 25% still no have formal internationalization strategy, and 47 have no defined any geographic right politically. Then we can ask a question together: in all institutions, do we have embedded document where international strategy is included in the overall strategy of a university? And with
Do you in your institution have an internationalization or international
to keep the framework and to securize what Françoise and Catherine said at the first level of strategy. It's not to indicate with which country, with which university we will develop a partnerships, but just for framework and to securize the partnerships. In my university, it was not a sure case, but then again we can share also the same progress. Then perhaps some line of solutions, development of a coherent national, because it's not only on the side of universities, it's also on the side of the state and the government. Then we have to develop a coherent national policy. State play a central role, and public policy can support less visible university, fund balanced collaborations, develop scientific infrastructures, foster regional networks, and link internationalizations with national development. Internationalization should not be viewed solely as a tool for global feasibility, but also a lever for development, scientific autonomy, scientific diplomacy, and strengthening national capacity. Then, government must play a part. After, you have all actions at the level of the university. Balance agreements, said before, and reciprocal mobility, scholarship programs and inclusion policy, a joint degree, and organize the academic conditions. Talk before about that. Internationalization at all. I talked about that yesterday. Capacity building of the partnerships. Diversification of partners and destination countries. Not to put your eggs in the same place. Policy supporting the circulation of talents and predatory limitation. Speak about that before. And perhaps can stay a little more on the branch campuses as a potential tool to reduce several asymmetries. Why? Because branch campuses are well integrated into the host countries' higher education ecosystems. Branch campuses can represent a particularly interesting solutions for reducing asymmetry simultaneously across several domains: education and training, research, innovation and technology transfers, governance institutional penetrance, and international academic visibility. Branch campuses is then not just a satellite, but a fully integrated global university model with research and teaching, and all activity and services associated to academic missions. This could be also only research centers like Senegalese on the USO, CIAD, or something like that in France, which is only organization for research. And we have a network of a research center in different countries. And so also you have training about PhD. And it is a good solution also to avoid the pipeline, because you have a master's and graduate students in internships in this kind of research center after PhD, and you can avoid some kind of the pipeline. And I think branch campus is perhaps a good opportunities to develop and to fund the partnerships with balance risk and advantage.
It could be interesting to know what do you think of those branch campuses from the Ethiopian point of view, because we may consider it as well as being foreign entity into your higher education system, and it could be a kind of of a challenger for the let's put it this way, the native university in where these branch campuses are located. So
Because I look for a very good example in Africa. I look for Ethiopia, but I don't find any example branch campus like the Sorbonne University. Yeah.
So, is there any branch campus in Kenya? Central. Kazakh. Is there any branch campus as well in Kenya for foreign institutions? I'm not so sure. No. And there is one in Morocco. In Morocco for this Central Subelec. It's an engineering school. Morocco, yeah, well, it's Central. And you have international universities. You want to tell us about that, sir? You had a question on branch campus?
Yeah, here
If you don't mind. This way from there. And then unless please we start with this gentleman and then when the Jarida start from the
I think the right person is probably Sarah Dakar, but what we had as experience that we are 12 completing the university autonomy, and that's our university will have external campuses, internal application, whatever at this agenda not yet complete. That's is a partnership will be generated from this kind of approach. Until now is a print. We have the direct MA bachelor or other some university, and extent is professor to center to center, yearly tiny nota. Therefore, we don't say we out the campus data on civic skills with you.
Thank you for your comment. And we'll be interested to hear from the Ministry of Education. Let's sorry, just
But then I agree to all the. As a policy, we encourage our public and private higher institutions to go out zero open branch, especially in their countries, especially the eastern part of the region, or may have very good relationship with the eastern out of the region, Somalia, Sudan, Sub-Sudan, Sudan. So you have very good beginnings. Especially the universities in eastern part of Ethiopia are going to Somalia. They are trying out to open branch. We have very good beginnings now. When we see the international the other countries coming to Ethiopia to large branches, we have very good beginnings as well. We have some proposals now, and there is a good beginning. We have a university from South Africa. So operating for the last 13 or 14 years, which art is under scrutiny now because of some reasons. So as a police, we are including both valued inheritances to go to down parts.
thank you. What is interesting when we're speaking about the branch campuses, or we used to call the offshore university as well, is that this is a joint project between governments. And once again, we will highlight that this for this afternoon breakout session. We will highlight the role of the states, in having a defined national strategy, not in attractiveness for sure, but to ease the mobility of staff and students as well. But on the other side, this is the positive side of the project. But on the other side, has that been mentioned by Catherine and Françoise, you need to have this legal framework. Legal framework has to be put in place by the states. And thus you have to get this involvement of both partners in each of the project. Let me go back to what you mentioned at the very beginning of your presentation, trust and transparency, because it looks great, you know, on the slides. We all want to have to set up a partnership that foster trust and transparency. But how can institutions really can go into depth in terms of fostering trust and transparency in partnerships to mitigate the effects of power asymmetry? Françoise, do you have an answer?
Starting to give us an idea of that and trying to cover it. Thank you so much for your question, Fatou. I want to begin with power asymmetry. It's very common when one partner has more funding, stronger institutional reputation, greater research capacity, access to international network or agenda-setting authority. Which is why it's important to limit the effects, of course, of asymmetry. Universities can do it by fostering trust and transparency in partnership, by creating as well governance systems that reduce unequal control over resources, knowledge, visibility, and decision making, of course. Trust is built not through declarations alone, no, but through shared governance, procedural fairness, accountability, reciprocity, and mutual benefit, as we said before this morning. I want to share with you framework, a rapid, quick framework of actions and institutional mechanism that help mitigate asymmetry and strengthen equitable partnerships. First, in terms of governance, we said it, but I insist on it now. In terms of governance, it's important to establish shared governance structures and co-design, as Kazui said this morning, and co-design objectives and priorities. The most important step is ensuring all partners participate meaningfully, of course, in decisions. In order to succeed, they can create, it's an example we did, we gave in these 3 days, we can create joint steering committees and ensure a balanced representation. We can rotate leadership roles, organize, it's another example, co-chair meetings, use consensus-based decision-making where possible. It's essential to avoid unilateral controlling agendas and reporting and symbolic participation. Just enter an agreement and do nothing. No. The symbolic participation is really a bad thing. It could be useful to write governance charters, terms of reference, shared making decision framework, and joint work plans. And the partnership whose objectives are imposed externally cannot work. Therefore, it's essential to jointly define goals, objectives, to conduct needs assessments, and to align project with local institutional priorities and iterate community perspectives where and when relevant. In terms of governance too, we have to ensure financial transparency, of course. Funding asymmetry overcreates hierarchies in order to reduce that effect. It's necessary to share budget information openly to clarify to indirect cost policy and to directly improve resource allocation. And it's important that partners know who receives what, why, and under which conditions, which it's important to have transparent financial reports and shared budgeting tools and agreed financial governance procedures. That was in terms of balance. In terms of education and research, it's fundamental to promote equitable knowledge production. In academic partnerships, asymmetry frequently appears in research ownership and visibility. So it's essential to establish co-authorship principles to recognize local expertise equally, to include, of course, all partners in publication planning, and to share data access and to support multilingual dissemination. Because visibility is a form of power, and we know it, it can help to have publication agreements, data sharing protocols, and equitable authorship policies. And still in terms of education and research, fundamental as well to invest in mutual capacity strengthening. Partners should not assume one-sided capacity building. It's vital for a balanced partnership to shift from a sort of paternalism, I say it that way, towards mutual learning and complementary expertise. Several actions can be taken, such as reciprocal staff mobility, peer learning workshops, joint training, institutional mentoring in both directions, of course, and communities of practice. Now, in terms of operational actions, it's indispensable to build transparent communication systems. Several simple measures can be implemented, maintain regular meetings, circulate minutes systematically, share timelines and risk openly, establish communication protocols, and use collaborative digital platforms. It's important not to forget that transparency means no hidden decisions, no privileged information channels, and no exclusion from discussions. And in terms of operational action, clarify roles, expectation, and accountability. And to conclude, in terms of relationships, it's highly recommended foster relational trust, not only contractual trust. The contract is important, but the human relationship is still important. Formal agreements matter, but trust also depends on relationships. Therefore, we have to create informal exchanges, opportunities, encourage intercultural dialogue, recognize historical inequalities openly, and invest time in relationship building. Of course, trust doesn't mean absence of disagreement. Healthy partnerships need safe mechanisms to manage tensions that appear sometimes, such as mediation procedures and early discussion of programs. Some keywords to remember: reliability, consistency, responsiveness, and respect. And it's highly recommended as well to address historical and structural inequalities explicitly. In international partnerships, asymmetry often reflects, as Ada said the first day, reflects colonial legacies and global inequities. University should acknowledge unequal access to funding, visa inequalities, language dominance, publication hierarchies, and ranking systems. It's essential to adopt equity principles, to diversify leadership, to support multilingualism, to recognize local knowledge systems, and to decolonize partnership practices. Some keywords to remember, and I complete with these keywords: equity, ethics, inclusion, diversity, and fairness. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I guess we had an exhaustive view of what we could do to fulfill this asymmetric situation. But I'm asking the participants, what is the most current asymmetric situation that you face when you're going into a partnership agreement with any other institution? It's not, maybe we'll start with the Toronto and then I will get out to you. Because it's very tricky to go into depth into this kind of, of asymmetric situation.
I'll come to your question, but it's very interesting one, and I'm very happy that this project is going very well with university. Are skilled to have this. You deserve that. But my question on to reflect on you is that there are, even not in the package, even the way we think about economic partners, there is something that bogged in my mind. And I would like to ask the panelists, any of the panelists, or particularly I would like to hear from Francois and Frederick, because having this, we are from the same one that that's the call. The situation is this established research partners, which is being organized by the British Academy for the last 3 years. So they want to have first kind of agenda setting workshop in different countries. So these countries are Kenya, South Africa, Malaysia, London, and South Brazil. If you look at the trend, how they have been submitting the country even to discuss about partnership, they went to a country where they have some population, former British colony. Hear it. What you have mentioned, Francois, or the British colony, colonial allegiance. So they are talking about getting partnership. Even the country that they want to discuss about the partnership is not it as a country, except their former colony. It didn't happen is however because they are being named former colony in Latin America. That's why they went to Sao Paulo. If they had won, they would have gone to that country. So my question from Ethiopian point of view, the asymmetry, one of the challenges that we have as a country, not even as public university, is let me use this Ethiopian say, whoever there is enough would be my stepdad. He cannot buy that. We have never been colonized, so fates are not our conspirators. Francophone, we are not Francophone, we are not Anglophone, we are not Arabophone, we are not Lusophone. So, yeah, in Portuguese, they want to partner with Angola and Puzzles. France' first priority is former France colonies. So Ethiopia, because of its colonial legacy, we are not the top priority what any of those European countries could come to attention. This is what we call colonial asymmetry, right? So my question is, how equitable is equitable argument? Thank you.
The journey, just Italy story that I will let our panelists answer to you. And start predict the way the British works, because we did the same. We started with the university starting at the partnership with our former colonies, and of course the Francophone points. But may I say that France differs from the other colonial states, and because we have a universal message to bring to the world, it'll sound very, I'm busty. He's very ambitious. It's a kind of, maybe a kind of colonial posture as well. But it is true that Mady differs in the sense that this universal message which is from the French Revolution, by the way. So it goes back 300 years ago, make it universal to all kinds of countries. And may I just underline the fact that even though we had favor, at the first place, partnership with Francophone countries, we quickly trying to have partnership very quickly. It's the 19th century with countries like Brazil, which were francophile but not francophone, and even with Ethiopia. We had already governmental partnerships dates back from the 1960s. So I understand your point of view. It's you have to be proud of your, by the way, of your history. You're not being colonized. You definitely have to be proud about that. And it's not your small Italian occupation that's going to change anything. So I understand this first, this first guides, which you could say is a colonial asymmetry. But I just wanted to miter, in a sense, the way France look at the world. Now, I'm not paid any politics. It is true that our president wants to open to all, African countries. So not only the Francophone country, and that's why he participated, President Macron, sorry, I didn't mention it. President Macron participated in the Africa Forward Summit, and he has even, he went to Angola, he went to Nigeria, he has received President of Nigeria 2 years ago, and he said now it's good that it is a number with the Francophone Africa. Of course, still have links with Francophone Africa, but Africa is not only the Francophone countries. It's all the African continent on the whole. Well, excuse me for just this historical perspective, and I like François Latourdi.
I'm going to go in the same way as Fatou. First of all, lucky you. You have not been colonized, and you have kept, of course, a very strong identity. So lucky. The second thing, I agree with you. Colonial legacy is visible, of course, in the relations established between some countries and countries that has been colonized by the first one. As Fatou say, the British or the British United Kingdom is in that sort of asymmetry with the countries colonized. I can show you that France has established relations with all countries in the world, in Africa, of course, but in Latin America, in China, in Japan, relation with all the world. So I think that asymmetry is not so visible in the relations, in the partnership that France established with these countries.
Yes, I feel this time what to say, and I share with you your feeling, and that's right, that collaboration of a Yoruba country, a partnership was developed previously with or former colonies, and we have to change that. It's a big challenge for example, French university, but the French strategy of international partnership in sciences. I speak about diplomacy. In the first day, you have 3 levels of diplomacy. The science in diplomacy, the science for diplomacy, and diplomacy for affairs. And it's the role of the state now to say what's my international strategy with my university, how we work with all parts of the world, and it's a group problem. It's not an individual problems at the university level, because your one university cannot collaborate with all the countries in the world, that the organizations must be at the state level and with diplomatic agreement to say we no more discuss about the problem of former colonizations. Now we have to develop our partnerships all over the world, and collectively we have to be organized to be ready to develop the partnerships in all countries. And in the success, it's at the group level, then at the level of the state, at the level of diplomacy, and at the level of organization of a university themselves, between them. How, for example, it doesn't exist. Universities don't speak together. To say, even with alliances, for example, my university belongs to the research alliances of BDs, we never discuss a collective strategy about research university for international collaborations. Then we have to better perform and to progress clearly to be ready to give answer and to his demand of the collaborations.
Now, just to add to your answers and give you another, I might say, perspective, it's up to the Ethiopian universities to get into it. I will touch down further on networks, but it's up to your institution to be part of all the European international networks. As mentioned by Catherine, she mentioned about a numbers of networking, association. If you don't want to be isolated, you see from all these international academic institution, conference and so on. And may I remind you that regarding the project, some of the pilot university president, Ethiopia president, have been invited to the International European Fair in Toulouse 2 years ago, the EIA, which is European Union of Japan, as well as the NAFSA, taking place in Europe. And we were all very surprised that such kind of international connecting people, connecting, all the higher education institutions did exist. Well, they do exist, and you have to be part as well of all those networks. So you can't let yourself be outside of these networks of higher education.
But just perhaps to be more concrete and practical with practical solutions. I think that if it's in your international strategy to develop partnerships with Europe and France, if you have agreement with your ministry and the state that you can be funded for that, if you're the president of a university, go to France and meet president or other university to say, it's a strategy of my state, my country, it's a strategy of my university. I would like to develop project in this field, and when the matching is identified, I think French university will follow and will develop partnerships. Very concrete propositions.
It's just behind you, Mady, taking another questions.
Thank you very much. It's so exciting to hear this impact partnership, but I would like to ask one question to learn from the experience of University of Manitoba. So, in the course of this partnership, what challenges did you face in aid, and how did you overcome these challenges? And in the sense that we could talk out of.
Yeah, of course, with any, as I said, with any relationship, like partnership, there are always challenges. But the community, from my experience, is literally be willing to compromise and accepting that we be weak in one area and the other partner maybe can assist. And I think for the partners with maybe, for example, more resources, being weak, they really support the others so that they can be at the same level and grow together. So as a university, of course, finances were a big problem. And we want to thank the government of Kenya because they stepped in. So 80% of this funding actually a loan to the government of Kenya, meaning the government is supporting the university by taking up this loan and doing this complex, and actually this will be paid by the government. So you can see already here, we appreciate here we need finances to have this complex, and not all the finances, but the other partner has them. So it's not really showing weakness, but that admitting that you're weak in one area and the other partner is stronger in one area. And even during, because we had a lot of preparations, we saw that we really needed also support of the French partners. And I can tell you, as a university, we gave back also, we have an expert from France, officially employed by the University of Nairobi, Mark Zolba, and is actually like an employee of the University of Nairobi. The university has even there an office, and is there really to support us as partners to really make sure that our interests as stakeholders are also on the table in this partnership. And we have mutual trust, open communication, and we admit the areas we are big. And by admitting that, we compromise and really we are able to come at the same level. And I want to comment, I know this back and forth that maybe like Kenya, Britain has been supporting. I can tell you from our University of Nairobi perspective, I would say is a drop in the ocean, our support from Britain. A lot of our support is from the EU, Asia, that is China, Japan, and Korea, and a lot of it also from the US. So for us, we are really open. We do a lot of preparation, a lot of research into the partner. I tell you, last month we rejected a partnership from one of the countries because we couldn't see any benefits that we are getting as a university and actually in my faculty. That partnership was coming to my faculty. And we refused. And they did not go ahead with it. So for me, I think it's just accepting their challenges, their weak areas. It really matters. I think also France has learned out from Kenya. And they are ready to adapt to our cultural way of doing things, our values, and our systems. As I mentioned the first day, for example, when we were doing joint mobility with PSN, they noticed our tuition fee is very high. I mentioned it's 1.5 Kenyan D or shillings. Yet, for them, education is almost free. So we have to come to the table, discuss it. Actually, it was a high-level discussion. I was in that committee. We call different partners and we say, how do we autonomize? How do we take care of the interest? Yeah, they are charging very high. This is a weakness. Our French counterparts, the government is fully supporting their system. There is almost nothing the students pay. So when our students go there, they are enjoying this, but when their students come, they'll have to pay this high fee. How can we compromise? So during the system, you would see all those nitty-gritties, blah, blah, within your own system. The structure of even the university, I know for them they call it diploma. It's like 3 years. Yeah, our degrees take 4 years, very intense. We force them to read. That's why I said when they go outside, actually they find their systems are very nice. And that's why they perform. Because our African education system is too much. We overload our students. And also we charge a lot. So all those, we accept our weaknesses. How do we learn from? For example, French partners, how come theirs is working? They are able to support their students. So all these things will come out, and as partners, you sit on the table, gather information. Your system is different. Our program is different. How do we create mutual benefits? And I can tell you, it's working, is doable. It's just compromising.
Well, last question here. Yes, sir, and then you will the other side.
Thank you very much. I think this last day presentation about partnership, I think the issues that's the leads of the autonomy. And recently, the governments and the universities always encourage to be friends our projects, speaking from EU or from different countries' view. The challenge is the applicant numbers are increasing, more increasing, and because the universities of Africa now, these numbers are increasing. For us also, the main accelerator we see have expanded to our around 15 universities and a lot of competitions. I mean, that applications that could be in high competitions. So getting funded is one of the issues of partnership.
And one of the issues is the funding schemes, the funding sources, a bit decreasing. The observations compared to the previous one, the Europeans funding also not so much increase as the numbers of universities have been increased. So my question is, one of the issues of the course or the partnership, the funders, highly increase with the interest of the the organization from the Europe, US, and most of the funders call is agriculture, food security, and peace issues and something like that. And it is a practice on the France with sparing the engineering arts, because I see such first is more or less correlated water resource. Yes, there is some oils, but especially the hard engineering part. Now a bit computer science and the AI, a bit given attentions, but the hard engineering parts, especially supporting of the manufacturing industries, especially the east part of the Africans have been lacking the production issues, and most of the engineering disciplines are not as highly, especially creative collaborations with the local industries are into the partnership of the EU. So my question is how this becoming a threat of us, engineering disciplines or engineering universities related to technical universities can get either support us for any form of funds or partnerships. You can maybe give an explanation of this for us. Thank you.
Thank you. I will just give you some information, then I will let our panelists expand. When you say the funding is has been you mentioned very fairly a little bit decreasing. Let me tell you that the EU funding for Africa has tripled. I don't have the exact figure in terms of billion of euros, but between the European Union, African Union, Africa Initiative on the World, the Global Gateway, you all heard about that. The amount of money given from the European Union has tripled, so it hasn't been decreasing. Europe is the first geographic area to contribute to the cooperation, partnership, networks with all the, I would say, the global south. Second, speaking of France, we're part of the European Union as well, and our commitment to the European Union in terms of funding has increased by 8 billion euros. So I just want to stress that out, that the fact that the French government has increased its participation, its financial participation to the European Union by 8 billion euros. And I should add as well that the French government, see the last announcement from President Macron, is a budget, a cooperation budget for Africa to be oriented towards the African continent. The amount that he has now set up, say, it would be 23 billion euros for the development, cooperation, bilateral, relationship with the African continent. So, as Frederick just said, we're not all in the same basket. It's not 8, but we don't not all the countries are in the same basket. Now, to answer your questions, and actually touched on once again on the networking approach of your institution, your universities. If you want to get in touch with French engineering schools, as Frederick just said, and I'm sure you will stress on as well this point, if you want to get in touch with engineering schools, even business schools, even universities, well, first you can ask the French embassy about the partners institution that do exist in France. And then you have to start having not a short-term relationship, and maybe Catherine will insist on that too. It's like we don't want, and I think that I'm not respecting, but with the François de Philippe would say, no university wants to have, just a short-term relationship with another university, another foreign university. You have to build something, you see. And may I say that the objective is not just spending, if I can say so. It can't be just spending, the objective. This is first an academic objective, but I will let our experts insist on that. Il faut répondre.
No, you give a complete answer, and the question was good. But just about the French on the French institution side, the university and engineering school are looking for permanent agreements. They don't want flexible actions with no more future than 1 year. They need and they're looking for like long-last agreements. Because you can make a strategy if it changes every year. It's possible. Well, of course, as François and Catherine said, you have a flexibility, you have to question the partnerships, perhaps take decisions, but the result is to add the partnerships for 3, 5, perhaps 10 years.
Just next to you, Vivian. Yeah, here.
Thank you so much. I have few words start to Kazbid and toward Francia. Perhaps maybe, well, that the initiative you presented is an excellent part. Always keep good out, but also from just the top straight to actually the rest is so I can understand really how similar compared to the Arab leadership is not going to prepare because there's a state backing as a European, but in a typical say like bilateral law consortium looking at like there's partnership with charity but your university. How is that work? How are you mainstream that across your schools? How it means say what have you vis-a-vis how does that work as far as sustainable is concerned? Initiative could be coming professors or bottom up or it's top down others. So in terms of sustainability, how do you look at that start since sustainability? That's the first point, maybe. Second point is, as you said, how the split new partnership on getting a fight split down if you are into the federal stress and industry, mainly that the education I look at to, that like how active are they, and then what are them if they are useful in terms of advancing those partnership. I guess they are good. What are the strategies you are involving them in terms of pursuing your global partnership? To Professor Francis, I understand you also have, this is North to South partnership. You also the partnership with your U.S. partners, counterparts, and European, which is North partnership. And what are the lessons that you see from North to South partnership? Meaning, what are the ingredients you see when you deal with your other partners, where you cannot find when you deal with the global South partnership? I mean, I understand, it's asymmetry, politics and everything, but aside on what are the practical lessons that can withdraw from those? Thank you.
You answer first.
Yeah, I'll start by saying 95% of our partnerships are actually initiated by individual researchers. and I can sit here and give you examples even of my own. Either it could be with like my first project and partnership was with Germany, where I was trained. And so definitely when they want to write a collaborative project, they'll reach out to their alumni because I was sponsored by German academic exchange. And so they always look for people they know or who have studied in Germany, for example, in a certain university, in a certain area. That's where the relationship start and build it. And now when it comes to the formal agreement, which are usually agreed agreements, then you escalate it to the top. Of course, you can't work alone as an individual researcher. So our process is that if I have a partner that I brought the university, I have to inform our vice chancellor. I'll start first the chairman of the department, the faculty, and then the vice chancellor. Of course, they will do a courtesy call between the two universities. And they will leave you now to do the rest of the process, do your research, identify your interests, the needs and constraints, and then put them into an MOU, which goes through our legal department, again, as a higher level, and then our vice chancellor signs on behalf of the university. But now you'd be the coordinator of that project, and make sure that that partnership is growing. So it's really something that you build with the time, and it can come from even a scientific, I think it's a scientific visit. For example, indeed, like I've been to Sudan for 2 months, I connected with a lot of the researchers. So definitely, for example, if they have something, they will reach out to you, and you can start building the relationship and then do it formally as a partnership with the university. So basically, that's how we do it in my university. There are those also institutions, organizations, or government entities that directly write to the Vice Chancellor's office or to the international office and say, we have this activity, we want you to be partners. And from there, the university then uses a top-down approach. They'll invite the relevant researchers in the area. Let's say it's one year, they'll pick the relevant researchers and they'll be part of that team that spearheads that partnership. So it can work both ways. But from my experience, 95% is from individual researchers.
The answer of Catherine was complete. Just, I want to add that when we think of a new partnership, we don't think if it's a north-north partnership or north-south partnership. Never. The importance is what we put in the partnership. It's academic reciprocity, or it's exchange student exchange, sorry. I think the important point is not with which partner or where he lives, or that's the importance is really what to be put in the partnership.
Thank you. We'll take a last question. I will go to you, sir, after I will distribute with your guests the questions. We'll take a last question in front. We'll have a second round table.
Thank you. So far, I mean, this partnership and networking is one of the important issues. So as the autonomy center internationalization is the means of the cooperation of this conference, what I want to say is that in many contexts, internationalization of partnership networking has been approached primarily as a mechanism for increasing visibility, improving facility, and also expanding funding opportunities to strengthen external cooperations. However, insufficient attention has been given to the extent to university retail strategic control in some areas of their academic priorities. So this approach networking and should be a emphasis into the research agenda, governance system, and the human capacity development of the industry. So this needs a partnership method seeks to reposition international cooperation, which with the framework that reinforce national independence, national relevance in the African economic transformations. So especially my professor has mentioned it. we are neither truckful or anglophone because Italian trucks for night us, but hey. So we sometimes after we get partnership networking through the European made funding, like student mobility. So one through Europe, also maybe 5, 6 African countries. So we have student mobility, and also this recap. The funding is for stipend pike and some international travels. But perhaps, for instance, if Sako once goes from Kenya to Kenya, Nigeria, or other country, he gets the fund, but the local, the facility, the yoke structure, or the lecturer future advisorship is covered by the host patient. For instance, I visit Nigeria as a exchange, and also I advise it on the first from one from Botswana, from Ghana, Nigeria, and from South Africa, in the country also in Tanzania about Mady. But this is considered as cultures, as local culture. So this we have side experience. The other issue is Lopez, French, French language was provided in high school, complete high school. For instance, I was just up there in my ninth case, but study French there, French language. It also the Ethiopian school living certificate also French language was a parallel English because provided the previous school rules certificate. So it was actually the Ethiopian government was also it was established. At recently, this has been stopped up. So we don't have spite actually with that better relationship in Dakar. From this perspective, for instance, in my university, we had to very quickly with Belgium and German, Dutch team. So the Belgium was like the train 20 pitch. But in this regard, there was one I used to support it. So the Belgium, they didn't provide us money, but they provide us the scholarship. So our staff, they go to Belgium, they took courses, they did their research in the country, in Ethiopia. This is what I mean that they are actually given also occasion to the academic grades. So it's picked up with this son, Ola, and Ali was in Juma, because most of the students have graduates. No, but at that time, there was a Belgian professor, Janissa, was studying in Mady University for long years. So he knows the area clearly. So we have a very good relationship. So the other is also I know that we have also a good relationship with German. But from for example, we didn't get as passage cross but for years, all from Richard. They give us try scholarship for 1 or 6 months. Some of them actually which they may spend here. So that's apparently my service is up especially for this French relationship. My suggestion is that if we could have few aren't in standard arrangements like maybe what I mean, but if you could support, have about 45 fielders. So if you could support, or if you could say yes in this manner, that you could maybe provide us maybe a PhD program area in mobility, the African mobility program. In that manner, actually, that could be very feasible. So I mean that we can say that partnership network organizes that because the outcome of this conference. So if they suggest or we may propose, unless and otherwise take only once or crafts or scholars to this is not as such a meaningful support. We can say that is as sharp or network that might be individual. So this actual was as for instance we were having just take one topic from my best. He spent was in South Africa, but there was one university from Europe. Because the ant is outboard. The other is also we have noticed. So it's something Tanzania. So that's also it's controlled by the European University. So you will not begin embezzlement or any just theft or something like that, and you can say. So this is what I wanted to say this. So especially the ability to support knowledge. So still now in a very good relationship. This is the one hand. So this because nowadays I expect that this the scope class is grateful and also is that you may get enough support partnership or meaningful partnership network. So that's my suggestion in what's my question. Thank you very much.
Can you give a short? Very short. Oh, it doesn't work. Mike? Yeah, I'm making you a short answer, sir, but I want to highlight what you just said at the very beginning. You have very good relationship with two countries, Belgium and France, and I suppose there's these long-term relationships going on for quite a bit of time. So the first things to start, before we speaking of the funding, is to go into this kind of relationship with French universities, French higher institution. And I have to mention at this point that the French embassy, the attaché for cooperation, university cooperation, is a good starting point. She's a good contact person to start building on this kind, to reach out to that French universities. You can't say just I'm sorry, I don't want just ask to direct, but you can't say just having access to funds. First, what is your internationalization objectives in, starting with a policy with French universities. Then, to give you some information on what are the available funding for the mobility of a researcher, PhD students, doctoral, at some postdoc. First, as I mentioned, France is giving a lot of money to the European Union, and you have within the Africa initiative from the French, within the European institutions. So the Africa initiative is one big program that allows and funds the mobility of researchers. But once again, this is true. You won't have access this kind of funding if you don't have really a strong relationship with a European, and I would say among the European pockets, a French partner. Just mention one of the program within the Africa Initiative. You can have also within another program from the European Union, what we call the scholarship Marie Curie, Swerdowska Marie Curie, which are named from this very famous, by the way, women researchers, Polish and French women researchers, Marie Curie, Swerdowska Curie, which allow your PhD students from all of Europe and from all over the world to do some mobility during their PhD or scientific and mobility. And even the French state has a program for mobility, PhD, postdoc, and researchers. This is the partnership Uber-Curien. Well, this is true. This is something that could be put in place after the visit of our President Macron. It is true that we don't have this very specific program for the mobility of PhD students and researchers with Ethiopia, the Partenariat Uber-Curien. So maybe it could be one way to explore a better relationship between our two countries. That's it. Oh, you want to add something, maybe, Bidiane?
Yes, as we were listing some ways of partnering, especially for PhDs, there's a website called Euraxes, Euraxes, basically list offers for PhD students and postdoc for all around the world that have been working at the university, and I know specifically that many students coming from, for instance, India, Bangladesh, or maybe China, where sometimes applying on this website to find the partner to pursue their PhDs or postdocs. So it's really good to know.
Thank you. Thank you very much, your panel. For the second phase of our roundtable, I will call on stage, I call on stage now Françoise Kofi from the Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Space, Mr. Mady Bathily from the Senegalese agency, and Mrs. Ada Peter from Covenant University. Please take a seat on the stage. So, we have been discussing a lot about, but it's very important, about asymmetry, about how to make partnership fruitful, how to start on a very good basis, fostering trust, transparency of all the partnerships agreement among partners. I want to go back to the importance to find against these asymmetries that can occur when you're dealing with your partner institutions. I want just to go a little bit into depth into how can each partner can put something on the table. And I think I will ask this question to Hada. What negotiation technique actually can be used to balance power and promote cooperative outcomes among unequal partners?
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Fatou. And good morning, everyone. Let me say salam. I haven't said salam today. Okay, so definitely when you have two partners who are unequal, the negotiation is not about to change that symmetry at all. It's clear that you're unequal either because of the funding, one partner has more money than the other, or one has more technical expertise than the other, or one has access to more resources than the other. So, but how do you ensure that you negotiate equitably? The first strategy you can use is negotiate based on interest, not on your need. I'll give you an example. You don't say to the partner, oh, we need your help. No. Rather, you tell the partner, we're interested in discovering how Ethiopians thrive in so and so place. So it's not about, I need your money. It's about, this is what I'm interested in. You can come with me if you want. You see that? So on one hand, you're not sounding beggarly. You're not, going there as if, without you, I can do nothing. No. You say, well, this is what I'm interested in, and I'm inviting you to be a part of it. That way, you're putting it forward that both of you are interested in this thing at the same level. Yes, you may have more money than I do, but on this project, we are equals. You see that? I'll use another example. So you're really keen about discovering, how we can extract water from the atmosphere in Ethiopia. Since you don't have a lot of water, you just have more of lakes. You are not, ocean-driven like countries like Nigeria. And you need a sponsor or a partner, but this is some huge partner, and your university is just one small university. The tendency for you to feel like, oh, well, we're so small, how do we go? No. You come before that partner to say, well, we're interested in this project. We want to understand the mechanisms and the technicalities of how we can extract water from the atmosphere, because when we successfully do that, these are the benefits for Ethiopia, for Africa, and of course, worldwide. At that point, that partner will not be looking at you as, unequal. The second strategy, so again, to reemphasize that strategy, you don't emphasize on your need, you emphasize on the interest, your interest in carrying out that project. The second strategy is you bring in options. In other words, before you approach that big partner, ensure you have other options. It's a strategy really in negotiation. When you let a partner know that, well, you're not my only option, I have other options, but I am giving you the priority because I think we share, beliefs. Think about it this way. Let me bring it back home. A young lady and a man. The man is asking the young lady for a hand in marriage, and the young lady, and this is a very wealthy man, I would say. Let me just put it in, right? And the young lady is very beautiful. What we say in Nigeria, shakara, like her, oh please, would reduce when she knows that, well, you're my preferred wife material, even though there are 2 other persons I could consider in case you're not interested. Being a woman, she'll still put up a front, yes, because, excuse me, and go for the 2 other women, right? However, it will reduce, if she was going to give you a tough time over 100, it'll drop to maybe like 60 and still give you a tough time anyways. So the point is, before you go to that table, ensure you have other options. It enhances your chances. Then the third strategy is sometimes it's better not to go alone. Go as a consortium. Go as a team. Imagine one Ethiopian university trying to negotiate with the World Bank versus 50 institutions in Ethiopia coming together under one umbrella to say to the World Bank, we're working together on this project. That way you stand stronger. So the first strategy, number 1, is what? Who remembers? Focus on your interest, not your need. The second is yes. Focus on, and then the second is have options. And then the third is what? Go, as a team. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, adults. Make a point. Any comments or reaction on that?
Well, actually, echoes what we just said this morning. We enter into this discussion how to reach out for a university, whether they're French or European universities. Well, reach out to university. As a team, as the Ethiopian team. I remember, so you were addressing me on the engineering schools. You have, in France, that demand that you get some information, either from the embassy or even on the website. You have the conference of all the engineering schools in France. You have the rectors conference for a university in any country. You have a conference of all the engineering schools. You have an association of all the business schools in all over in France, of course, but in many countries, in many European countries. You have the rectors conference of the French public universities, and that's one point that is important in terms of networking. We didn't speak up to now, we did speak of networks, but to emphasize about the networking process. You have to, and I just echo stress on what Ada said, you have to come as a team, like the Ethiopian team. That's what you did actually when you came to this European higher education fair in Toulouse in France, which is taking place everywhere, each year in a different city in Europe. Speaking of networks and speaking of conference fairs, is it true that Ethiopia, or when I would say at the governmental level, you could have a representation of all the universities of the higher education system of Ethiopia in those kind of fairs? The fact is it costs money, for sure. But this is one point to give you visibility. You have 3 big fairs around the world, speaking of cooperation and networking with higher education institution. So you have the European Fair, the IEA, you have the NAFSA for North America, and you have the API for the Asian Pacific, area.
And this is important. This is an investment, but at the same time, this is rewarding. You have to spend a little bit of money to get more visibility, to get more knowledge from the cooperation, world, and to have access to networks of partner institutions. There's one comment or question. Yes, sir. Lydia, can you please give a mic? And Mady, could you please close the door? Reading.
Non, celui-là, je comprends. Thank you very much for this talk. And I think it is good to have this kind of oral history because we should come back in some important area to each person of all at the federal level. We have the university concept in Ethiopia, or at Silva University, whatever person. We have the university concept here, or whole universities at any given organization need whatever and coming out with some ideas, challenge, opportunity, accessibility, etc. But it is something you should need more about advanced on that direction. What we have in Ethiopia is of different chances. For example, you can take France as an example. It was no union government to government or university to university that first crystallize accuracy. Further researchers are coming into different industries, natural, engineering, earth science, social science. Then each professor coming from French universities have something to do with Ethiopian politics. And like that, the child kind of element to state what this is something we have as a consulting, or if I'm taking a survey as a. However, if we are, you mentioned this morning, how is the position of France comparing with other European universities? As far as survivors is concerned, France is good with us in many ways. In one, even without preparation, postgraduate tasks are many, and this is what is upgrade as much as well. We have some agreements with the French universities. I can mention Bordeaux. Bordeaux, example was Nantes, Paris Nantes, Nice, Erquy, and École Sportive d'Anciens Social. These people are almost teaching, affiliating to the research areas. It is good. The French network is exceptional comparing with all European partners. France has straight center port, if Kenya, Sem Kakisava, University Ponce d'Afrique du Sud, etc. And finally, the French presence is traversing continent America. However, did we properly benefit, address the problem, forging our partnership, and realizing is expected in this year point, and you have project as 7 years perspective. Another is the question this morning the professors present, maybe they can add. Okay, I have a question. The question is a partnership challenge. This challenge is a challenge for all universities we have in this country, but exceptionally when we see survivors, I myself is a direct narrations for 5 years. Maybe I signed 250 MOUs with Wallet. What is on the table as practically implemented and what are not is not difficult to put into categories. However, the challenge of partnership is a legal aspect of, I think someone mentioned, our Kenyan as I mentioned today, the legal perspective of the MOUs. China, for example, says everything you could, but if any dispute arises, as does the Chinese law exactly, or as European law. But if we are speaking as a question, okay, if we are speaking about the internationalization, it is there a rule for international law to handle things. Otherwise, these
reasonable solution. This is what we have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you raise a very good question in terms of, legal aspect of agreements. Maybe I can ask Françoise to give us, ready to start giving us an answer on how a governmental relationship could ease the legal aspect of a cooperation agreement. But it's an expertise. Let me tell you, I'm not a law person, but it really demands. Yeah, it really demands an expertise. Maybe just if you have a disagree.
Yes. I think in France, nowadays, we don't like to, in the ministry, we don't like to impose very binding legal tests for cooperation. It's more in a flexible way. We encourage universities to get partnerships because, as I told yesterday in the workshop, we don't have equivalence in a very legal way in France no more. It's more of a smooth procedure of recognition, and the same for the partnerships. We prefer to have smooth partnerships with a convention between the partners, but which is not very legally binding. Exactly. Yes.
From my experience, I've been negotiating here, I will say, hundreds of MOU that I wanted to be already implemented. Into just highlight what Françoise Profit just said. Yes, there's a kind of flexibility, even though law is not flexible at all. But the fact is, in terms of data protection, as has been mentioned this morning, and in terms of compliance with the regulation of the ministry in France, we were very key, on having this compliance. Either the fault to enable the regulation of the states. Now, if any, I will say, conflict might arise between the two partners, we should usually stress on the fact that depending on the country where the conflict or the difficulties may arise, the applicable law was that from the country. In other words, if any difficulties happen in France, it will be in the French law. And if any difficulties happen in the Ethiopian context, it will be the Ethiopian law. I don't know, Hada, about your point of view on that from a Nigerian state point of view, in terms of legally binding MOUs and applicable law.
Okay. So usually when we sign contracts, we make it dual. It can either be arbitrated in Nigeria or the partner's country.
Yes. Yeah. It must be, once again, this is to fight asymmetry and to keep on with the equality of both partner institutions. Did that answer your question, sir? Yeah. Any other questions or comments at this stage? Well, we've been speaking of asymmetry. We've been speaking of all the, actions to be taken. Let's speak about the impact and how can we measure the effectiveness of partnerships in addressing power imbalances over time. So, Françoise, this is my question to you.
Yes, thank you, Patty, for this question, which is not an easy one, Dash. So, as you know, at the French Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Space, we strongly support, of course, international partnerships, but we are also aware that partnerships are not always fair. That is why we need to keep asking ourselves, are our partnerships helping to rebalance power between universities, countries, and regions? From the French perspective, we see that many of our partnerships are successful on paper. Publications, mobility, joint degrees, research projects, and so on. But we also see that sometimes one partner remains the main decision maker. To measure effectiveness, we can look at who decides. Are our partners equal designers of programs and projects? Can they say no without losing access to funding, for example? We can also look at who benefits and who leads. And we can look at who owes the results. Can our partners continue after the project ends? Can they teach the new courses, manage the new labs, or lead the new networks, and so on? From the ministry's point of view, we need simple shared indicators. For example, the share of activities led by partners university, the share of budgets managed locally, the number of co-publication and co-directed theses, or the presence of partner representatives in steering committees. In France, we are very attached in this kind of presence of partner and students, for example. It's a good indicator for us. And we must measure these indicators over time. Every 2 or 3 years, we must ask, in the power balance improving? Are our partner universities more autonomous, more confident, more visible? At the French Ministry of Higher Education, we call for more balanced partnerships. Partnerships that are not only efficient, but also equitable, as we said this morning. Partnerships that respect the knowledge, the needs, and the sovereignty of each partner. In short, therefore, I believe it is important to agree on common standards. Reporting should focus not only on what is done, but also on how fairly it is done. Partnership should be measured not only by what they produce, but also by how equally they are shaped. That's my answer.
Thank you very much. Well, I expect some reaction and comments from you. So what do you think about that? How do you think you can ensure as well this equal balance?
Really?
Well, good answer.
Thank you for the question as well as for the answer. I just want to ask, like, okay, you have indicated that partners should also be respected. Do you think the funding body could should put a sort of criteria, maybe for assessing this effectiveness, like indicating the asymmetries of the partners? Like when some people are asked to the test or recommend for the partners, do you think that they should also put in report mechanism where this asymmetry or partnership should also be reported? The effectiveness of the partners should be also reported. Thank you.
I get there's two level in your answer, if I may rephrase it. There's first, when you're speaking of funding bodies, you're speaking of donors, or just so this is one aspect, And we have this other aspect at the university level that even one partner is giving funds or giving money, what can the other as well put on the table? I say this is the way it should be viewed. So, what are your thoughts on that?
You hope to know. I know too, what not?
So like, what's the question again?
But I guess the question is both, I mean, on the donor side, what kind of criteria can be put in place, and between partner institution, what kind of conditions can be put in place regarding the fundings?
Okay,
Making balance.
right. Still back to what I had mentioned earlier. A good way to approach these donors is not to try to impute agreements in in individual agreements. So let's say the World Bank is coming to Jima University. To make it balanced, don't present that clause, the sovereignty clause, as though it were for that partnership. Present it as an institutional position. I don't know if you see what I mean. So, for example, if it's an institutional position at JIMA to say that we don't shift away from this clause, the partnership notwithstanding. So the World Bank will not be telling you to remove that clause for that partnership, no. Rather, they will be asking, okay, so what's the flexibility around, this clause, right? So present your position as institutional, and not just to say it. You should actually have it in your policy documents anyways. I'll give a straight example. If, for example, at our university, we have said that we don't modify our curriculum beyond 20% of the current status as an institution. So even if we're entering into a partnership with AFDB, AFD, World Bank, Bill and Melinda Gates, whatever it is, whatever innovation you're bringing cannot supersede that clause. It has to fit into the 20% that we allow. So it's not unique to that. That's one way to actually bring, stability and, balance in the negotiation table, or beyond the negotiation table. I don't know if that answers your question. I wasn't quite listening to the question, but I responded to what Fatou said.
Sorry, my question is actually, what I'm saying is, do you suggest, let's say, okay, I'm discussing about partnership, about the symmetry in our friendship. If, for example, donors, they, okay, do you think that we need to put criteria where partners are established for this asymmetry, team to visa, and a mechanism to ensure that this asymmetry exists among partners?
If the asymmetry exists amongst partners?
Yes, mechanism to ensure that the funders be sure that this asymmetry exists. Do you recommend this type of criteria to be?
The funder make sure that asymmetry exists?
Yeah, this is something that
it's contradictory. Yeah, the asymmetry is already there. It's not for them to make sure it exists, right? The imbalance is always there, either because they have more money than you do, or they have more technical expertise than you do, or they are more resourced than you do. So it's not their making. It's just like saying, should we make sure that your first child is taller than your second child? Well, they came out that way. So the point is, how do we ensure that the first child doesn't intimidate the younger child? Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to say is the world where we don't see is quality. We all say there is equality. However, there's always no power balance because the economic, political, whatever.
But that's how the world is.
Yeah, my friend was actually from Marissa, where we said talking about, by example, these friends. The British is trying to apply to these all colonial maybe countries as yet. Because they just want to see it from the point of view of themselves. That's where the asymmetry lies. That's where they are going to be the best. Otherwise, they will look, why should they come to the stage if they don't get something? That's why I was actually asking the question to Professor Rakati about
what is the French government or maybe institutions benefiting from investing a lot with.
Oh, they benefit a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, people have to see in terms of that. You cannot say that it's a free lunch everywhere. So donors might not really have interest in checking, or they might not, or they might also be interested because they are applying also, for example, we know what the World Bank is doing. They ask for example, structural adjustments if you want to get aid. And then they give you a framework where they say, okay, you have to invest in these areas of education and culture because you are continue structure. So where is the asymmetry? Really, unless I, for example, also submit to the needs of them. So is there a mechanism to really maintain that 100% landscape?
Are you talking of asymmetry or symmetry?
Asymmetry as well.
Right. So I think what you're referring to is equality, right? Because the asymmetry already exists. But here's the thing. When a donor is giving you funds, he has ulterior motives as well. I call it ulterior motives because there's an intention. There's what he also wants to achieve. But what is more glaring most times is it looks like they're helping you, but they're also sort of helping themselves, right? It's called aid to you. But for the donor, there's also what he benefits, invariably. So if I hear you clearly, what you're trying to say is we should also make it conspicuous what the donor is also getting. Not necessarily, oh, we're helping Africa, we're doing this for Africa. Okay, we're also helping France, because France is, you know, if I think about this strategically, the more, let's say, for example, France invests in Africa and help Africa develop, it might actually really help it deal with its immigration issues somehow. You see that? America, the same thing. When they give you US aid to ensure that your health system is working, it's a national security issue, because if you migrate from Africa with a health issue, it's going to affect America. You see that? So there's always a strategic intent. It's just that you need to see it, okay? It's not necessarily, it's a win-win for both sides. That's what I will say, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Anton, and thank you, sir, for this question. What I may add from the, I'm not a donor, of course, but from the donor's point of view, because we answer to lots of proposals on France Education Internationale, actually in terms of the cooperation that aid. Of course, it has been said, they have their interest in giving money to be a South global South countries. They have their interest of, it's not just, giving money for money. They have the interest to have real impact, on your social issues, on your economic issues. And at the same time, yes, you must be aware, once again, we can stress this point, that they're doing that for the human interest as well. But let's put it this way. This is fair. This is fair on either side. This is like a company. It's fair that a company is making profit. If not, it won't be a company. You see, it will be philanthropy. And you can afford it or you can't afford it. So the point is now, it will be more interesting, I shall say, to measure the impact, the real effect of any kind of partnership than just say, and say it again, we're unequal. There's inequality everywhere. So it's more interesting to focus on the real impact. And once again, it refers to what I've been saying this morning. You need to have clear objectives. What you want to do in terms of international cooperation, internationalization of your institutions. If you lack these clear objectives, activities, outcomes, of course, the asymmetry will always remain. In the relationship with your partner. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Luke, Mars University. So I share all that it's shared right now, but my question is, how could we African universities
improves the bargaining of or the things that they can present to artists to just minimize this asymmetry. And the purpose of sanitary will not disappear either way, of sure. But if we want to minimize this as a pre, it is very important to think what do we have to show art universities or in funding agencies what could happen. That was very at the speed of that was a Bojini answer. Come Africa to press and letting their focus on here. What are they we are going to contribute? What opportunities we have? Admin, terms of skill, terms of some kind of resource. So otherwise, if we don't have that power, this ability will get wider and wider.
You haven't listened to the lessons of other Peters.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because you said it.
I was gonna say I already was giving you the way to reduce the asymmetry, right? That was the first. The one, don't go needy, go based on interests. Second, the one I just mentioned now is make it institutional, not based on that partnership. Third is have options, right? I clearly gave that example. Let me use an example. Your friend walks up to you and says, Sally, Meseli, let me use your car. I need your car. Versus he comes to you and says, Meselu, I want us to find out how fast your car moves. If there's a problem with the clutch. What's the difference between those two? Well, what's the difference in terms of the way I presented it, right? One makes me look like I need your car. The other makes it look like I'm helping you. Let me see if your car is okay so that you can take it to the mechanic. Interests. So when you're before these donors, it's not your need. It's about their interests. In fact, the more you put it based on interest, the more they'll give you more money. Because they're also interested in that thing. Not that you're making it look like, if you don't give us this money, all the crops are going to die. No. I'm really interested in understanding, why these crops are dying, because I realized that last year we shipped about, 60 million tons to France. And if these things continue to die, we might not be able to even make up, 2 million to France. That's a food crisis right there. They'll give you the money. That's interest. But you need the money, but you don't go there as per you need the money, huh?
I understand my thing was is to be specific, to gain some specific experience, but gaining power do we have just this competitive with the finance coming from? So yeah.
And to add to what just an video say, because I've been negotiating quite some numbers of MOUs and agreements, scientific and academic agreements. I even sometimes told, in the context of African partnership, they can give us data. They can give us knowledge from the African side. So this is what you have. We don't have it. If we need, for instance, to do a survey on medical, on medicine and especially I'm thinking on one of a partnership that was set up between my former university and one African partner. What was interesting, we may have some kinds of methodology to improve this medical aspect of a specific medical aspect, but the interest of the African university, what they had the data. They had the knowledge of the context of the surrounding areas of the environment, and this is in every aspect. This is what you have. This is what you have to offer to And it's just, even if we may have the money, even if the donors ask the fundings, he doesn't have the ecosystem. He can't do anything, you see? So you shouldn't, let's put it this way, you shouldn't underestimate what you do have. Catherine was mentioning that, of course, they didn't have that much money in entering when they enter into this French-Kenyan partnership in agriculture. But in agriculture, they have the land. They have the land to support this, to make this partnership happen. And even when they receive money from the AFD, the French Agency for Development, to build this new building, they get the land. It was an asset. It is an asset from the university, or I suppose university. So it was an asset. What the purpose of having a building and you build it if you don't have the land? We see? So let's put it this way. I have learned a lesson from that. Don't underestimate yourself, and just keep in mind that you have your own assets at each level.
Yes.
And actually, that's what makes the project working. Every time, if you have a partner, every time asking you, about fundings and we need this, and this, but it has to be reciprocal, because the other, let's put it this way, another institution needs something from you. If not, you would not enter into a partnerships agreement, and you need something from that. So every partner has something to put on the table, for sure. Otherwise, I'm convinced. There's the question in front, Luis, Yigian.
On the pic, I'm just going to raise some issues similar to what was said earlier. From the very beginning, I wanted to ask, is it really a partnership between Africa universities? I mean, if we take European universities, especially, this is it either and then the parts? Because Africa universities, people, professors, departments, universities out there are in structural partnership. Why they obviously not that brings some well established experience, brings money, brings project, brings linkage that exposes stuff, probably students. As for the resources not here, this is currently in sector of research, in search of ideas, in search of technology, getting exposure, getting access to foreign resources, foreign leaders, foreign people. These are processes. This factory was in the town. Mainly, I wanted to know what's the perception out there, like how local universities, local professors perceive and understand. I mean, we need partnership with those. Obviously, we wait to get something, and that obviously we wait is something from you. So this against Easter is a power in the arts. We went to get, and then you are the one to provide us support because of your experience, with the experience sector of excellence things. So this makes the power in us from the very beginning, the Navy, a partnership and native arts replicants. So I mean, how we make this partnership for mutual interest. That's you, local university professors, know well aware about what we need, so that your engagement, your partnership should be developed on friendship in the way that could help us enhance our traditional colleagues, get us a space for exchange, genuine exchange, knowledge transfer, knowledge transfer, even nutritional cultures and the visible transfers. That like without considering that because we mainly offer something respect other than spaces, other than certain few facilities in our inclusive premises. We only impossibly in troubles and in mobilities and those sort of things is well known. So how like my question is we usually talk, always talk, in every day about constitution, pursuit. That we need to work is the universities outside, blending with with the universities in Africa. Our pursuit coming us adapted is very few because of small secure resources. That every African university, every people out here is looking somewhere else. So how to make our participation very genuine, based on the perception that there are treatable resources as scarcity here. If a professional university needs many things, so that you genuinely contribute, you genuinely contribute, you genuinely engage, so that enrich this idea of internationalization, this idea of linked academic universities, and that us also within the core culture of sustainable development as the development head. So my voice maybe how to keep it is very tangible, practical, that disregarding those all perceptions, involved perception from our side, and also the conventional relations, how the relations, the structural relation with the developed powers, that the developed south. So that's it is only this context or need that we can make a genuine contribution to this issue of internationalization architecture. And without forgetting that we as Africans also need to work partly with each other. Right on our level or on our eggs. We have to start and initiate things, but gradually moving forward. That is we obviously need to reduce the goods, dependence on external conditions, external knowledge. That is to add this guide it take much.
Thank you. I take is more comments on what you've been saying. What I can add to your to your comment in terms of how to start a partnership. It can start at an individual level. Usually, it starts at the individual level. So now the next question is how to reach out to those individual academic. This is definitely dealing with networks, networking. As an academic in your field of studies, I'm certain that there are lots of networks, association, and in national or international organization that you can reach just to see what's going on in other parts of the world. And then this is the importance of networking. You will get in touch with other people, doing those kind of studies in other country, and you will start, talking with them and trying to just to say what we could do together. So this is true that the very beginning of a partnership agreement, this is only need to a basis for sure. Is there any questions?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. My question related to the intellectual property rights with partnerships. I want to have opinion on that one, and the one scholarship that in encountered in the development of some technologies, especially that have research and develop components, and also many commercialization also part of these systems with some partners in Europe. We have seen that their widths they've been become very sensitive. We have been making some development of utilization of wastage from the industry park, house industry park, and we have been trying to utilize the outcome of water treatment plant, their sludge, and we want to use these materials for the transport purpose, actually, for negative what's called city replacement of the for the ground. So my question is, how is this experience of because this intellectual property, Ethiopians are also claiming that to be a part of voluntary organizations, and this intellectual property becomes also an issue nowadays. And with this partnership issues, this coming of intellectual property as an issue to be shared with the partners and the universities, because autonomy also wants to have bringing of capital money to the universities with having of these intellectual property rights. So how this be managed, especially in if there's funding for this partnership, and how the Europeans have been experienced of the managing of these intellectual properties rights with African partners, if you have picked any certificates next. Thank you.
Brightest question. I'm not an expert in intellectual property, but from my experience, we have a very strict regulation in terms of intellectual property in France. I suppose this is the case in many countries, and we have to comply with those intellectual property rights. The common let's put it this way, the common use, the common habit in terms of property rights is that for each partner that gets into a partnership, it's the property rights he owns in his country or even in his or her institutions belongs to him, belongs to the institution. What will be, let's say, in terms of rights, what will be distributed among the two partners is what they will have fought, jointly in terms of research or in terms of education. But the basis is each partner keeps with its intellectual property right. Maybe Hada, you have comment on that?
Yes, just to add to what Fatou just said, to deal with intellectual property issues, you have to be clear about this from the get-go. From the beginning, who owns what belongs to who. When the discovery, we'll make a discovery, who owns what percentage. So you have to be very clear. I think if you're clear from the get-go and you sign that document and it's a legally binding document, then it's not about to change halfway through the journey. See that? It becomes vague when you were not clear from the beginning. And then, we're all beginning to see the potential of what this research could turn out to become. If you start a negotiation at that point, there's going to be conflicts. See that? Think about it this way. You and your brother, not your brother, maybe a friend or someone you just met, you decided to go on an adventure without discussing anything. You say, we're just going to go together and see what we find, on this, this mountain. And there you are on the mountain. Oh my God, you just discovered there's a bunch of gold there. Who owns the gold? Huh? And you say, oh, come on, I was the one that told you let's go on this adventure. I own 80%. And he says, excuse me, if I did accompany you, you won't be on this adventure either. So I own 80%. But imagine that before you left off, you said, okay, whatever we find on this adventure is going to be a 50-50. Or it's going to be a 40-60 because I'm the one sponsoring, I'm the one this. So even if you find gold, oil, special minerals, whatever it is, the agreement is binding. So my recommendation is be very clear from the beginning. That will take away any conflicts that may occur.
Well, the Q&A that will ask first my questions to in relations with mandatories to Mady. It's important networks. I mean, this much. Mady, what support system are needed for faculty and students in internationalized education? And you round up with all this curriculum.
Merci beaucoup. Beaucoup de questions intéressantes, car elles évoquent, à mon avis, la préparation dont bénéficier les enseignants, les étudiants de l'université, dans le cadre de la mobilité universitaire.
So it first started at the university level for students and academy to have supporting services or systems, excuse me.
Quand? Oui, parce que, alors, d'abord, je parle pour les étudiants. Je pense qu'il y a ce qui est important, c'est d'abord l'intégration culturelle et sociale.
So first, for students, what is important is interculturality and the social relations.
Moi, je viens d'une ville de l'Est du Sénégal. Vous avez des villes, des communes, avec des lycées. Vous pouvez avoir un bon élève qui a un bac. Et on joue pour la mettre dans une université au stade.
So, speaking for students first, someone starting their networking experience, I will say. If you come from, a provincial, let's put it this way, or remote country, city, and you go for the first start at the university, you need to have those social supportive services to welcome students.
Il n'a pas une occasion de voir des étrangers. Vous imaginez le choc culturel qu'il peut avoir. Je donne mon exemple quand on est enfant. Souvent, quand on va aux Occidentaux, on arrive en disant tout va.
Vous aviez, pardon?
C'est-à-dire quand on voit des Occidentaux, des étrangers, ouais, on ne les voyait pas souvent.
Okay, it's like foreign students, international students arriving in the foreign city. You need to have this welcoming space for them. So this is the same thing inside your own culture.
Et à mon avis, pour cela, ces étudiants doivent bénéficier de programmes de mentorat, également de bio qui les préparent à l'accueil.
And I would say along the beside all those supportive services, they definitely need to have some mentorship, mentorship programs to help them into their journey to the university system.
La seule chose également dont nous aurons besoin, c'est la bêtise linguistique. Ils doivent comprendre la langue du pays d'accueil, notamment le jargon académique de cette langue.
Je vous laisse développer.
Oui. Alors, la première chose également, c'est le bien-être social et mental. J'ai connu au Sénégal une étudiante très brillante à l'époque. On disait que c'est la meilleure étudiante du Sénégal. Quand elle a eu le bac, on l'a orientée en France. Elle était à l'île d'Adisso, au Boucher et à Soirée. Les gens se posaient des questions, mais en vérité, elle avait une dépression. Elle n'était pas préparée un peu à août de l'île de Gras. Les gens croyaient qu'elle était en ce qui passe. En fait,
Sorry, I'm summing up a little bit to all that, but that fits that this is an issue we've been addressing quite a few times with Ethiopian partner universities. This is the issue of the well-being of students, how it is important for them in terms of a medical issue, in terms of social issue, to be better integrated into into the university system, and I will even say on the on the campus as well. So this is what was highlighting Mady with a very special, I would say, example, but I will go.
Tout à fait. La province également, je pense qu'il doit bénéficier en fait du aide administrative. Il doit avoir des services qui sont spécialisés un peu dans la délivrance de papiers. C'est important également ça.
What is even more important is supportive, supportive services, supportive administration. I will even comment in saying that it is true for students, but as we're speaking of a partnership, it's very important to have supportive administration for all the setting up of partnership agreements, following up on this legal aspect you have mentioned earlier, not only legal ethics, compliance, legal compliance as well.
Un bon exemple est la Cité internationale Université de Paris, dans le 14e arrondissement.
Oui, j'étais pas là en mardi que vous En juste me dire, vous voulez dire de vous sur les académies? Oui, pour les réseaux académiques.
Je l'ai reçu, mais j'en parle plus.
Qu'est-ce? Je vais m'arrêter là.
Ok, c'est bon.
Merci. So this afternoon, to pursue with this conversation, Mady Bathily is doing this work, I would say, on transnational networks, developing academic and administrative networks across the African continent. Let me remind you as well that in Bordeaux 1 at one after lunch, 1:40, you will have designing partnerships that increase our autonomy. I guess that Catherine and Françoise will keep on developing their the topics that they address this morning, but they will go more into depth into very concrete examples. Hada will do in the 303 breakout session on internationalization of African universities, objective and means, and you should listen carefully to what will be said. And then after the coffee break, you will have an interesting session of France-Africa cooperation through the lens of capacity building. I know that many of you are addressing this question of capacity building. Mobility, other session 305, mobility and attractiveness will be made by Françoise on national policies to enhance the international appeal of local higher education and research. And finally, I will do the sessions on monitoring and evaluation mechanisms, measure of internationalization impact, which is quite important. Thank you very much. This is the end of our roundtable.